Hello everyone, Shintai here. I recently reviewed the game Nier. If you haven't watched my review on it yet, please check it out. Before I start the actual video, I want to say that this will contain major spoilers for Nier. If you haven't played the game and beat it at least once, do not watch this video. Please go finish the game first and then come back later. You have been warned. As I was replaying the game for the review, I came across a specific quest that inspired me to go into much more detail about the game's message. Around the release of Drakengard 3, series director Yoko Taro, also responsible for the game Nier, revealed that the theme of the original Drakengard was centered on the insanity of praising murder. Nier, however, showed the evolution in his thought process, and was instead about how murder can be justified if society tells you that you're in the right. This theme is much more pronounced during the second playthrough of Nier. With the new cutscenes and dialogue as well as the newfound knowledge that shades are actually humans, it's supposed to push the point home that perspective is important, and it isn't right to try and simplify things into black and white terms, simply because you're ignorant. Knowledge is important, and so is trying to see things from perspectives that aren't strictly your own, as well as see things for what they are as opposed to what you think they should be. The game does a magnificent job of conditioning the player into the mindset that shades are evil, monstrous creatures that deserve only death, before the reveal that they were actually the original humans. Because of this conditioning, you don't take the time to think of alternatives to situations, and assume that shades are the greater evil and that everything is their fault. This ties in beautifully with the second playthrough of the game, where major events in the story were actually huge misunderstandings. With all that in mind, I want to specifically talk about the quest that is only available in the portion of the game prior to the 5-year time skip, and is one of the earliest side quests in the game that you can partake in. This is a simple and missable quest about finding an old man's dog. When you find the dog, he's already dead, and he's surrounded by shades. Keep in mind that during this portion of the game, assuming you're still playing it for the first time, the player is still under the impression that shades are mindless monsters. Now, because of this, it becomes very easy to assume that the shades killed the dog. After you kill the shades, you can examine the dog and come to find out that the dog had medicine in his mouth that he wanted to give to the old man. When you get back to the old man, it turns out that he passed away as well. It's a somber way to end the quest, and further implants the idea into the player's head that these shades are pure evil. However, those who have beaten the game know that this isn't true, so let's take a minute to analyze this quest in greater detail. Let's first look at how the victim is a dog. Regardless of whether you're a dog person or not, we can agree that dogs are innocent creatures. They're man's best friend. How dare these shades kill an innocent dog, getting medicine for his poor owner on death's door. It may be a simple but fairly effective method of getting the player riled up. The dog doesn't know any better. It doesn't have any idea of the conflicts between shades and humans. That's making his death rather tragic. It does a great job of painting the shades in an even worse light. However, this leads to a very important question. Did the shades really kill the dog? I'm inclined to believe that it actually wasn't. For one, the dog's corpse was a fair distance away from the village. I think the chances of the dog not encountering any of the shades along the way and not being killed by them earlier doesn't make much sense. Not to mention the dog had medicine in his mouth when he died, so I think it's safe to assume that the dog didn't try to attack any of the shades. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have had anything in his mouth during the attack. Another thing to keep in mind is that in that area there are tons of sheep and goats that the shades do not attack. In fact, it seems the sheep and goats are only killed when you do it yourself, or if you're attacking a shade and a shade hits it by accident. Since there's no evidence to suggest that the shades go out of their way to attack animals, and the dog showed no signs of aggression towards the shades, and finally, the nail in the coffin in my opinion, there isn't even any blood on the dog to suggest that it was attacked. All of the facts considered, this makes it very difficult to believe that the shades killed the dog. This of course raises another question. What did kill the dog? I firmly believe that the dog simply died of old age, just like his owner. In fact, the parallel in the quest itself lends credence to this. It was simply time for both of them to go, and to go together. His owner was an old man, so it makes sense that the dog would be old as well if they were old buddies. With this in mind, and considering how far away the dog was from the village, I'm guessing the dog trekking that distance for the sake of his owner unfortunately sped along his death more quickly, as he overexerted himself in trying to find the medicine. Now this leads to one more question. Why were the Shades there when he died? Shades, at the end of the day, are still humans. They still think and feel. This is an undisputable fact when you play the game the second time, and the game lets you hear the thoughts of the Shades. They're sentient creatures that can think for themselves and still retain their intelligence. It's possible that the Shades surrounding the dog may have simply been people who like dogs, and they were sad about the dog passing away, and they were mourning his death. Then you come along, assume they did it, and kill them for it, despite there being no evidence at all suggesting that they did. This is the game's elaborate conditioning of the player to stop thinking logically, assume everything is black and white, and to simply kill them because everything else in the game up to this point, for the majority of your first playthrough, supports the idea that the Shades are pure evil. Another example of this sort of subtle conditioning is your faithful companion Grimoire Weiss. Weiss is German for the color white, and the Shadow Lord, the game's main antagonist, using Grimoire Noir, noir being French for the color black. This is the game continually implanting the idea subtly in the player's head: you're correct, you're good, they're wrong, they're evil, just so it can smack you across the head at the end of the game for thinking like that, as it proves you wrong. This, my friends, is the game's message. Open your mind. Think logically and clearly. Don't make baseless assumptions. Don't take everything simply at face value. Look at things for what they are, and don't simplify everything into black and white terms, because the world is generally not that simple. This has been Shintai, folks. Take it easy.